So today I'm going to talk about offensive security as in, what is that we do there, all those things. Uh, in the previous week, I think I was not there in the previous week because I was much more ill at that time. Vishnu gave an introduction to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, what exactly are different components out there, all those things, right? So I just will give a brief description about myself before I move forward. And one of the more reasons why I'm approaching this particular webinar and internship program in a particular pattern, right? Uh, so I've been in cybersecurity for more than very long time, more than 15, 20 years in a progressive way, but more actively involved in cybersecurity for last 14 years, 14 to 15 years. My passion for cybersecurity is what which drove me to go to UK and do, because when I did my master's in cybersecurity, I think only there were three or four universities in UK providing that course up there. And I've been doing a lot into that. So I've been into academics, I've been into academic research. I've also been part of CIS, compliance benchmarking out there. I'm also been involved with a lot. Nowadays, I'm involved more in setting up organizations, setting up their pen testing teams, and all those things out there. I do work in not a CISO, but a virtual who can help companies set up their security operations and that. The main reason for coming up with the second week of introducing people to cybersecurity testing, what is cybersecurity testing and infrastructure security testing is a lot of times I've faced in an interviews, not when I'm the one who's interviewing the candidates, right? So for a particular role, I interviewed about 900 different candidates. It was a very exhaustive role, interview process, and the number of roles that were available for only two. But every afternoons, about 2 hours or 3 hours, I spent a lot of time trying to recruit people and understanding. And I, on the way, I've found really intelligent, really good quality students, but their lack of knowledge in cybersecurity, in specifically in penetration testing, was lacking, right? And they also were. They're not someone who is not into cybersecurity. They were into cybersecurity, but their understanding of the topic that is required in the industry were not there, right? They knew they more into some other topics of cybersecurity, and which prevented me from hiring them out. And there is a lot of times these candidates use ask me at the end of the interview, so what is that I should have done all this time? What is that there? And things like that. And this is one of the examples I would suggest, to think into consideration what can be done and what is that we are looking in the industry from a cybersecurity professional in the field of penetration testing, right? In the field of penetration testing, that is what it is. When it comes to DevOps or DevSecOps, we are going to talk about it extensively in the next week, and about cloud security the week after that, right? So today, basically, we're going to look into how to break stuffs and how to get into things like what is the approach, what are the processes we do, and things like that is going to be taken into consideration, right? So before we go further, any kind of, especially if you're a fresher, if you go for an interview when it comes to any security, right? Any security role, something they'll ask you is what is CIA? So CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the. This is a very important role because when someone says there's a breach of security, someone got hacked or someone got, loss of securities occurred, it is when one of this is compromised or all of them are compromised, right? So it can be in any combination. Most of the time, in the current scenario, we don't see all three getting compromised at the same time, but we do see a lot of more than one component getting compromised at the same time. So, but what exactly is this? What exactly is uh, confidential integrity availability? Just one second. When we need to record this session, is it being recorded?
Yeah, Mr. Devashi have started the recording.
Recording, good. Good. Confidentiality is basically only the authorized person can view the data, right? It could be your email, it could be anything. Not only it has to be digital, it can be digital, it can be something non-digital also, right? Let's say you're writing your own personal diary, you're writing it up, and someone reads your diary without your permission. That is actually breach of confidentiality, right? Especially the European law is much more clearer on this. They deal with data, they don't deal with Computer Act. Okay, they are two different things, and you could be prosecuted in two different ways as well. So similarly, in organization, when someone's look at your client information, let's say Sony PlayStation Store or Sony, gaming portal has a lot of customer information, right? They will have their billing addresses, they will have credit card information, they will have their username and passwords, and what games and how much long a person played a particular game in terms of hours or minutes. That is also going to be calculated out there. Those are all critical information. If some hacker gets his hand on that information, it is breach of confidentiality, right? We have to take into consideration here, confidentiality is about viewing. There is no modification is happening out there. It is the integrity part where it will come into play, right? When you're modifying a legitimate data without any proper authorization, meaning you're not supposed to do it, someone who's not supposed to do it can make modification to that. In those situations, it's going to be integrity, right? It could be changing your house address in Aadhaar card, or in your banking. In bank, you're able to change your house address or your mobile number in your bank account without your permission, because OTPs, it can be broken out from them, right? All those things making an illegal modification comes under integrity check, right? Availability is where the final and the more important one, where we will see, what we can say is that there is no loss of data, or there is no data is being not tampered at all, right? There is no loss of data, there is no data is being tampered at all, but legitimate users can't use the service, right? One example for this, ransomware, or recently when we saw the Microsoft blue screen attack, right? So that was something, a bug that was up, and no one were able to do it. And that was called the biggest availability breach in the history. So many Microsoft devices were down at that time, and they were not able to use it at that. A lot of other times there are different ways. I think especially you might have seen when you were in the college and when you used to get the results on the result day, your result portal would not respond. That is basically because too many people are accessing over it. That is not an attack. But if you can simulate the same thing and prevent some website from opening properly, that is going to be an attack, right? So there are cases, let's say if you're having a big billion day in Flipkart or any other Amazon website, there's a large sale. If I can, in especially in Amazon sees from December 21st to 23rd, there's a huge amount of booking that is happening because a lot of people are purchasing Christmas presents at the last moment. Okay. And that there'll be one particular day, the amount of sales they're going to do is going to be much higher than, in some cases, probably a month's more than that, right? Month sales will be much smaller than that part out there they will do. If on that particular day, if attacker can bring down AWS server, think about what is the business loss there. So in those cases, the availability comes into a very important role. So you have to take into that consideration as well. Right? This is the main broad breach of this is what is included at there. But along with this, there's three other things we need to be aware of: authentication, authorization, and accounting. Accountability, you can take it out there. And this is something where people are more involved at an enterprise level, at an website level. People are more involved in designing, are going to be morely involved. So authentication is, it is, how do you prove someone's identity, right? How do you prove someone's identity? It can be done in three different ways, predominantly. Something that is your password, you can remember that you remember that password. And so it's something something you have, right? Your access cards, something like that, or your ID card will play as a process of authentication. So that is going to be there. And something you are is biometric. that you're born with. So you're going to hold on to that. And biometrics, your facial fingerprint scan and things and all. Biometric is a bit tricky, right? A lot of people think it's very secure, and actually it is very secure, right? Uh, Someone steals your passport, you can change your password, right? But someone steals your fingerprint or facial scan, how you're going to change it, So you have to be careful where you're using biometrics as well. Authorization is something it's about a role, right? Something it's about a role. For instance, let's say you're working in a call center and there are different departments there. So there are certain call centers are working for particular states. There's a call center for, let's assume, a Citibank is a big bank and there's a lot of customer grievances calls coming in. So they will divide the customer grievances call based on the state from which it's coming, right? So there will be a call center executive or person who's attending the calls who has access working on California state will only have access to California state customers, right? He should not have access to any of the other state customers. Similarly, a call center executive working on Texas should not have access to other things, right? But whereas a manager who is working on top of them will have access to all the data and other things on there. So when such kind of an restrictions, because you're already logged in, you're part of Citibank itself, but you are inside the organization, there's a restriction on what data you can access, and that definition is going to be authorization checks. That is the process coming there. Accounting is basically some kind of an mechanism where you can know what role is being played by which person, right? What action has been performed by a person, not the role played, what action has been performed by each person. Whenever there's a modification of some data, there should be a log of that telling that that particular person modified some information, right? So we have seen I've seen multiple places. I think if you have been in my previous lectures, I would talk about, in one of the companies I was working in, there was a SAP server and someone deleted more than 10,000 customer data, and this is about 20 years back. At that time, customer data was very precious and number of customers are also less. So 10,000 customer data is huge, right? And the person who did that did not respond, did not tell, I did not delete anything. He claimed innocence and everything out there. But what happened was SAP server there was a mechanism to restore the data. So luckily, and it also had the information which ID was used to delete the data, from which computer it was used, and what time it was used to delete the data. Because of this, that person who deleted the data was caught. Later, he confessed, and disciplinary action was taken against him. But this is very crucial. Any major task has to be done, and especially nowadays we are seeing in a SOC environment. SOC, there's this accountability plays in a lot of role. If there's a Linux server administrator, even if he's running, let's say, sudo cat /etc passwd, very simple, or sudo cat some random file, because he used sudo, the admin privileges, that will be a log telling that that is the level of accountability people are required nowadays. You cannot log in as root. If you get logged in, there's an immediate alert. There's someone is looking into that, right? So those are the things that comes into, right? So basically, this we talk about what is that as a pen tester, I'm looking at what are the things I'm looking into break into stuff. This is my breaking someone's authentication, compromising username and passwords, or trying to access data which I'm not supposed to access, or trying to delete the data. All those things is a very important part, and that is what we are looking at, right? So you may be thinking, okay, so what is pen testing, right? What do you mean by security testing? Security testing can be broadly divided into two parts. One is vulnerability analysis, and second one is penetration testing, or we also call it as pen testing. Pen testing is a diplomatic word for hacking, to be precise. So we no longer use the word hacking in real time, because hacking comes with a lot of different meanings. It's not only breaking a system. Uh, it is also about, in a way of telling is how to do something in a clever way. You know, how do you make things better is also is also called as hacking as well. So to make it more, streamlined, pen testing is a word used out there. And what are these two things, and why is they both two things, right? So what happens is that when you're working in real time, it is not always a good idea to hack, depending on the customers and depending on the environment you're working with, right? It is very crucial. It is very crucial, especially when you are hacking a live environment, a production server or server which is used by thousands of people at the same time. When you're hacking, it may not be a good idea. It might actually break the server and bring it down, right? So there are certain situations we do DOS attack simulations where a client specifically pays us to bring down a server, right? And they want to see at what is the threshold does the server can handle, and what is this. We do attack the server to bring it down. In those situations are a bit different, right? So, but most of the time, what we see is that a testing is usually divided into an infrastructure and a web application and mobile app testing, right? What we see majority of the times. I've also done testing for how do you hack an X-ray machine, patient monitoring, vending machines, which will vend you chocolates or cans of sugar drinks, things and all. We have done it most of them. 98% of the time we are security testing infrastructure and web application. In that 90%, 98% of the time, 90% of the time your testing is a web application, right? That's that. And nowadays we see infrastructure testing is predominantly into vulnerability analysis, right? This I'm particularly telling because a lot of people, a lot of students actually who want to get into cybersecurity and pen testing will end up spending more time trying to learn how do they pen test infrastructure level, how do they hack servers and things and all. In real time, that goes down very less, very significantly very less, because when you're practicing on a lot of vulnerable machine by design. In reality, that does not occur, right? We see a lot of ports that are closed, very specifically designed configurations are up to the mark and things like that. So that usually does not occur. So more predominantly, and even the clients don't like you pen testing their servers. They would prefer doing the web application because they can run their applications in a non-production environment, but they can't do the same thing for this part. So what is vulnerability assessment, or VA we talk it about, right? Basically, VA is going to be looking at scanning predominantly. We are going to scan the devices for any issues, security issues and things, and we'll try to understand is there any underlying vulnerability, right? We are only scanning it. We are sending some kind of a signals. What do you mean by scanning? We are sending some kind of a signal to the servers or the target devices and seeing how they respond. So based on the signal response, I can tell what kind of an issues and other things are there for that part. That plays a very important role. And this is very much, yes.
Sorry, Karthik, before you proceed, sorry for the interruption. There are a
Yes.
few questions which have been there in the box.
Okay. Yeah,
So
please
is it
tell
the
me.
right time for you to discuss that?
Sure, definitely in the wishes. You want me
Okay.
to open? Yeah.
I'm not sure whether you have attended this thing. What from Miss from Caroline? Okay, what is DevSecOps and what is Pindinster? Or is it that pen tester?
Pen
I'm
tester.
not sure.
Yeah,
Pen
pen
testing.
tester, maybe pen tester.
What is DevSecOps and what is pen testing? I think you have already discussed, but if you can just have a
Yes. Yeah.
word or two.
Sure. So pen testing basically is about hacking the website's application, right? And you're going to give a report to the developer telling that this is the loopholes inside this, and this is the how you're supposed to fix it. You know, Or what you can tell in a, if you go and look it from an Hollywood perspective is that pen testing is basically it's a good guy who is breaking the safe for the bank, and he'll tell this is how I broke the safe. This was I was able to crack the lock, and he will give them a report telling that how to crack the lock and things like that. So the bank will go back to the lock designers and give them the report, and they'll come up with a better lock so that the same thing cannot be repeated again. That is what it's going to be there. In DevSecOps, pen testing is one of the functionalities, right? It is one of the activities that is going to be performed out there. So when you understand pen testing, you know what are the issues, what are the vulnerabilities that could occur out there. So based on that, you are going to help them design during the design phase of the vault itself or the safe itself on that. So that is how it will help you out. Hope it was a short and precise one. Right?
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Karthik. And there was another question from Sanjay S. Sir, is it possible to make bootable Kali Linux USB with VM in USB? My laptop is old Windows 7 with 2 GB RAM. I'm not sure.
Yes, I think so. I think yes, you can do live CD. You can do that bootable from your mouse only, right? There's I think even if you have a shortage of budget, because the problem with live is that the saving of your scan reports and things is going to be difficult. Okay, you can use that, or you can if you can afford a Raspberry Pi. I think probably Raspberry Pi comes around 5 to 6,000 or even 7,000 depending on the RAM size. You can use that. Small memory card will be more than sufficient. You can look into that as well. And one more thing, it is not mandatory if you want to learn hacking, you have to learn Kali Linux. The only reason I would prefer using Kali Linux is because Kali Linux comes pre-installed with a lot of tools, right? And if you want to learn pen testing and things, try to learn Linux first. I think preferably going via Ubuntu way. If you're using VirtualBox instead of using VMware Workstation, that will give you a little bit of better advantage, right? And what you can also do is install Ubuntu in a CLI mode, and that will run faster as well. Rather than going with a graphical user mode, in the starting, learn as much as you can in the command line mode on that. So then you can probably in the meantime, then you can look where can you go with that part. Yeah. Or you
Thanks.
can do, yeah. So or Hack the Box is one of the portals where you can enroll. I think they charge about $15 per month. And there's also an online on browser based Parrot operating system. That is also a hacking operating system like Kali that you get access to. Any more questions?
Okay, thank you, Karthik. There is one more from Sai Chandra. Sir, what are the tools used by a pen tester, and what is the difference between bug bounty and pen testing?
Bug bounty is also pen testing, right? Bug bounty is also pen testing where I don't do bug bounty because I work for an organization and they'll give me the IPC website they need to hack, and I hack and give a report for them. Whereas in bug bounty, you are getting paid bug bounty, right? Certain amount of money for particular vulnerability. And how much money you're going to get depends on the organization, how rich the organization is there. For instance, if you can get a touchless hack on your iPhone, I think you can get somewhere around $1 million for that. And there are certain places you don't get anything. You get just an appreciation email. It could go beyond that point. So was it one more question of that along with bug bounty and pen test?
No, that is all.
Yeah, that's all. Any more questions? Let's continue with vulnerability analysis. Vulnerability analysis is less problematic. There are certain job roles who only do vulnerability analysis, right? So basically, you just give the target IP address or a website name and you put it in the scanner and it is going to run the scan for you. and you in the end they'll give a report and just send that report to the client, right? So I've worked in very large banks, Middle Eastern banks. So there was one guy whose job morning used to come, you would have got reports from the previous, take this report, put it in a particular format, send it to the end users for that, and again start that particular day's reports, scans of that, take it up and putting over that. So roughly 4 hours of 4 to 5 hours of free time for him in every day, but 3 hours is going to be like hell because he has to crunch all those report in a particular format and send it across. But it was quite easy, not much in terms of intellectually challenging or anything, but it's still you get to learn a lot in those roles. So basically, this is what it happens in VA tool, and VA tool again comes in two sections. For network scanner tools, predominantly we are looking at devices like routers, switches, firewall, servers out there, and sometimes even desktops or laptops as well. We see from an hacker perspective, scan them, look for any open ports or any vulnerable ports, and we like to see if there is any version disclosure is happening. And then based on that, we'll see how do we get the data on top of that. Can it be exploitable or things like that. At the same time, you might have seen something like Acunetics and Zap or NetSparker is one more tool that is there. That is designed specifically for web application, right? Nessus tools and all, Quali and all do that. Quali can do both web and infra. We see that Zap and Acunetics are much more prevalent. Their approach, way the tool is designed, way it scans, meaning way it sends the signals to the web server and receives backs, it gives out a lot more information about the attack vector and collecting information about that. We'll talk about how collecting information is important, right? So this is how it is going to be part of it. This is very straightforward approach, right? So it is to identify ranging vulnerabilities, right? What is a critical design flaw, misconfiguration or there or something like that. Certain times configuration checks like SSH is a secure shell is a tool for remotely connecting to a server to send a remote commands into that. There, the main requirement is critical bug if you allow a root login from a remote system, right? And the administrator might not know that he might have enabled it. So scanners such like this will identify those vulnerabilities. It also gives out the documentation and produce. It will also give these scanners will also give out proof of concept, means proof where it may be configuration settings or some kind of a screenshots where it will show the developers or the stakeholders, people who are involved in managing that infrastructure, that how this particular vulnerability is existing on there. And also these scanners are nowadays have become really good at giving guidance or recommendations. So let's say if there is, as I told, root is enabled on a SSH server, it will probably tell you which file to open in your server and go to that which particular line and where which value should be changed to what. And that is the level of recommendation nowadays you get in some cases. Not for all, because we do sit down with developers time to time and we'll talk about this. We see this, okay? So it does help out. Right? So basically, in DevSecOps is basically about how do we integrate this in our manually instead of doing it manually, right? I told one person sits up every day, runs it, then gets the report and does it. So how do we do it automatically, right? So what are the different stages that comes in a VA? So first thing is network discovery. When you're doing black box, this is done very important. If you're not doing black box, then the customer will give me around 20, 70, 80, or some cases even 300 IP addresses to scan, and where I run a network port scan and service identification, right? I'll try to see what application, let's say if you're running an Apache, I like to know what version of Apache you're running out there. So that is, and what port number you're running on Apache, right? By default, you're maybe running your web services on port 80 or 443, but it is not mandatory. So it is my responsibility when I'm doing VA to check for all the ports that are used out there and know what software it is running. So once I identify the software and if I get the version information, there is a lot of places where I can know whether that particular version is vulnerable or not, right? That is very much important for me. And if there is a vulnerability, then I will have to report to the development team where they will resolve it, right? And then again going to integrate the same process again and again. And this is not going to change, right? We see VA being done, whether it's a web application scan or an infrastructure scan, done more often, right? In some cases, it may be a government requirement or a compliance requirement if you are collecting financial information of the customers that you have to do it minimum quarterly, and most of the time it's done on a monthly basis, right? It's done on a monthly basis. That is how it is going to be done, right? And predominantly, this is how a Nessus scan report will look like, right? So you can see that they're telling a dashboard is being given where it is telling 75 vulnerabilities I've identified with all the devices that are there, right? Number of hosts, you can see 54 devices were identified, scanned, and vulnerabilities identified for 1,564. Out of that, remediations for how many is there and things like that. Those things come into play. And we can also see there are differentiation there about Linux, Windows, and others are used. And what is the how many percentage is critical, high, and medium and low is there. So criticals and mediums are something which are more important that you should address, resolve it immediately, right? Let's say if you're using an older version of security or cryptography devices, you should upgrade it to the later one. That is what basically it is going to be, right? Low and medium, low and info. Info is not a vulnerability as of so you don't need to fix it. But if you fix it, it is a good thing, right? It is not that someone telling is that if you're going for a function, if you wear something really bright is good, but it is not mandatory that you have to wear. But they'll tell you have to wear a suit. Suit is mandatory, but what color suit is not mandatory, and that is something like info, right? And pen testing is where the real work comes into play, and sometimes it takes a real intellectual person to do pen testing, depending on the environment you're doing out there, and especially to start off with, right? Uh, a pen tester is also called as an hacker, predominantly mainly because he needs to be aware. Is an expert in the underlying technology, whichever it is. So for me, if you take, I'm more comfortable with mobile and web because I understand how technology, underlying technology works better. And there are people who are good in API testing, right? They understand the application programming interface for web APIs much better than me. And they are more able to identify more vulnerabilities on that. And there are people who are more into IoT, right? Because they understand how IoT works. So hacker is someone who is an expert in that particular field, right? So that is why I tell people who are coming into DevSecOps, it is good idea to do the DevOps course first, then coming into DevSecOps because it gives them a much more, a hold on the subject like that. But what makes Pentester unique is that he is same as an hacker. He will use the same set of tools, same kind of techniques, and we also do the same things out there, right? The only thing here is that the principle that is going to change. The hacker or with someone with a malicious intent is going to do it for the wrong reasons, and we do it for the right reasons. Our reasons are very straightforward. We tell I want to safeguard this particular website. I want to protect the website from malicious intent. Because when this data gets out, and especially some of the data where I have worked on, which is very confidential, those in data is very much important, right? It is not only about customer data. Think about there's a source code for a particular software. Someone has worked on that source code for 10 years, right? And that can be taken away by them in a fraction of a second. And someone comes up with a similar product, right? How devastating it's going to be for that person and things like that. And a lot of things, right? So we have seen people, we have tested applications for people who have worked on websites or they've lost somewhere around $50,000 to $70,000 in a half an hour's time, and they had to shut down their website because they lost so much money, right? So we do help out a lot of other organizations in providing the security. So, but what exactly is that we do? Right? What are different types? In types of testing, we do it in three main ways, right? As I told, white box testing, gray box testing, and black box testing. Right? When you're working for an organization, right? Someone asked me what is the difference between pen testing and bug bounty. Both of them are same. It bug bounty is predominantly a black box test, right? So in by black box testing, only thing that is going to be given is the IP address or the domain name or the website name that is given. No other information is given to you. Similarly, in a bug bounty program, same thing is going to happen. Everything has to be done by you. You have to either register yourself as a user, see how the application. There is no explanation. There is no information about what software that is being used. You don't know what coding is used and where the server is stored. What is the IP address? Nothing information is given. No, zero information is given. Predominantly, why there's a huge demand for good quality bug bounty hunters is that they do hacking without knowing such kind of a data, right? And white box testing is also similar, but the entirely opposite of black box testing. In a white box testing, what happens is that I go to the organization and they give me everything. They give me access to their servers. I'll get admin access to the servers. I can see all the configuration. I can look at the source code completely, what everything is there, what database, what ID, what password, and everything. There is no information that is not given to me. Everything the developers has access to, I will have access to, sometimes even more than that. Right. So then based on that information, I'm going to use it out there. Yes, Ajay.
So for bug bounty hunters, there is something no in scope and out of scope. For
Yes.
they have some subdomains to do for testing.
Yes. Correct.
And
So I'll explain that. Just give me a second. Let me finish up the gray box testing out here. Yeah. Gray box testing is basically about partial, right? I do get information. I will know, they will tell me what is the technology used, what programming language. I don't get access to the source code. They don't give me access to the servers, but they'll give me thorough walkthrough of the application. They'll tell what is happening here. All those information is given to me. That is there, right? And they'll give me a set of credentials also, which you don't get in bug bounty. You have to create your own if possible. In here, I will also get an admin user also for the application, not for the servers, right? So anything when information is given not complete, it is gray box. When no information is given, that is black box. Pretty common thing that happens when you work as a pen testing for a company as an auditing, right? Security auditing company, you're going to work in gray box testing. Very rarely I'll get black box or white box. If you're working as an internal pen tester for a company, you're going to be predominantly doing white box testing. Right. When it comes to scope, right? When it comes to scope, I will give just an example out here. Let's say we'll talk about something like an apple.com, right? Apple came up to me and told you have to test this application, Karthik, and this is what you're supposed to do. So now let's understand. Let me go to Mac. Right. You see here, the website is remain the same, right? www.apple.com in.mac. That is what is the process that is happening out here. Right. MacBook Pro. So wherever I go, the more I clicks are there, you can see everything is going to happen in apple.com. Nothing is getting out of scope. And let me click on buy here. Right. So let me select few things. Right. Let me select this. And see the domain scope is remaining the same. That is still in apple.com itself. I've not done anything else. And I'll click on add to back. And it's still in apple.com. Right. So now when I go and click on review back, and click on review back and check out, see you're still in apple.com. And check out when I do that, you can see it completely changed. It went from www.apple.com to secure6.store.apple.com. The scope changed significantly here. I am no longer supposed to test this part of the application, right? They're going to tell this is the domain that has to be done. It has to be done in that particular part only. In some cases, what it is going to happen is that you have to check out with the customer telling that this is what I've received. Are you sure you want me to continue? Right. So I'm just giving an example out here. It is not specific to this. So any domain that is been given out there, the subdomains will also be given out there. If you go tesla.com, there are certain domains you're not supposed to do. You have to stay away from that. That is what scope is basically about. So that is going to be discussed with the client when you come to that. So that the management is going to decide and they're going to stick to this, and you have to stick to this part of that. Okay, that is how. And hacking phases are very straightforward, right? You're going to look at reconnaissance and scanning are two phases where you collect as much information as possible. When you think about very large hacks, when we do, right, when I'm doing, probably reconnaissance is a very non-existing because the customer usually gives out the information on that. Black box testing, you need to do certain amount. Scanning is where I usually start, right? When you're working in an organization, there's a lot of information about the application is given. So where reconnaissance is not needed. But when you see large hacks that is happening in the newspaper and things like that, the reconnaissance phase is the longest phase out there. And the scanning phase is the second longest phase, right? Where we're collecting a lot of information about the organization. We have a set target. There's a not only from a computational perspective, we are not only looking at LinkedIn profiles of the employee, we are not only looking at the company careers, looking at what kind of equipment, because these two things will give out what kind of an underlying technology the company is working. Let's say someone is working in an organization, they'll tell he has experience in Linux administration for 10 years and he has worked on Red Hat and things. It means that they are running a Red Hat server out there, right? Or in Windows administrator, they may be running an Active Directory and things like that gives out information. And lot more into that, right? Someone is Splunk engineer, meaning they're running a SOC analytics out there with Splunk out there. So lot of information, right? So because nowadays large scale hacking is not done by individuals, it's done by cyber mafia and things like that. They take a lot of time because they don't want to raise suspicion. Because when they hack, they can be very accurate. They'll tell on this. I think for one of the banks in US, they told we are going to hack on this particular day at this particular time. They gave them a 10 days head start and they scrambled to find the vulnerability. They could not hack on that particular day at that exact time they got hacked, right? So because they did their homework very well, they were able to do the reconnaissance, right? But once you get the scanning, you get a lot of information, then that is how you design how to get inside, and then you gain access, right? That's what is supposed to be in the system. But after being in the system, that is predominantly we see nowadays is because there's a vulnerability existing and that can be fixed anytime. Once that vulnerability fixed, you're kicked out, right? And the hacker, the main main motive is to stay on the system for a long time. So they may be doing something else. Sometimes the hacker will create their own users and create backdoors so that they come in and come out anytime. That's the thing. And that happened in real time. One company got their log analytics done and they got to know they got hacked 4 years back, right? Because the user was, a suspicious user was there and that user was there for 4 years. And that is how they do that, And again, clearing the tracks. Because whenever you do some action, because of the accountability, the logs are generated. It is the responsibility of the hacker to try to delete as much logs as possible to prevent people from knowing that someone was in the system. A good hack is good hack, when no one knows about it. If someone knows about it, it is not a good hack at all, right? So these are the different phases, how it go into play. In my career, what I have seen, what people occur, what are the vulnerabilities that occur, right? Predominantly, I see, 3 levels of vulnerability, 3 types. One is vendor software, Right? Vendor software is basically there's a vulnerability in your Windows, there's a vulnerability in your Python or in some Jenkins vulnerabilities there, or it may be vulnerability in the firewall tools and things like that, which you have not written. As a developer, that you have not written, that becomes a vendor software vulnerability. And a lot of times I can gain access to that. And a lot of times people don't upgrade their software for whatever the reason it may be. You know, sometimes they have a legitimate reason, they update the software and the system crashes, so they have to go back. So that is that. Second one is configuration files, server configuration and device configuration. It's not done properly, and even though they will set up security services, we have seen where people will have a very good HTTPS service where the communication is secure beyond very much, but they will allow an HTTP connection also, which is totally insecure, and people can be duped into using that services. There are a lot of other things. You know, see as benchmark, if you go, there will be hundreds of pages on how to configure things properly, and that is why VA tools are very important, because these tools will link into these configuration files and helps us out a very great deal. Right. And finally is the web application code. You know, the developers themselves write bad codes. We have seen, not because they're bad developers. The main reason is they don't know about security. Right. So I am involved with a lot of times, have taking classes, training for developers, and they go back and rewrite their code. And they'll tell, okay, did not know this could happen. Or I could have put up a code. Let's snip it out here to make it better and things like that. So that's important. So that is where that comes into play, right? So before this is what predominantly what an hackers or pen testers do, right? So in a day in, day out, this is what I am, an auditor, security auditor, meaning I work on multiple clients at the same time. I'm not working on a single website. I have worked more than 300 plus applications till now, right? And these days I don't get involved much because I'm more into, designing, DevOps, threat modeling and things like that. I help our clients with that part. I do test sometimes. If I feel like I'll sit with my team and work on it. That's how it works. Before I go further into AI, anyone has any questions? Anything related to pen test?
Priyam Maiti has one question. He asked, like, scanning means scanning for open port.
Yes, scanning for open ports, then again subsequent request or the signal sent to that ports can give out information about what service they're running, right? For instance, port number 80 and 443, if you're running a web server, out there it will be there, and it might give out web server version details, like it might give out like Apache version, what it is running out there, and gives out that. So that information can be used again by us for doing a lot of other activity out there. Yes, that is scanning for open ports. There is also something called as nowadays vulnerability analysis scanners are a bit more better. You can give the credentials for the server. So these scanners logs into that server and check out for configuration. Not only checking for open ports, they also check for configurations and does that. But that is bit very rarely done because organization don't trust the third party auditors to do that, but they might do it internally themselves. So I think probably part of a DevSecOps, we are seeing authenticated scans much more prevalent these days. That could happen out there. Yes. So anything else?
No, I think that was the last question.
So now, before going into AI, right? So what is an artificial intelligence and what is automation? Right. So why AI is there? What is AI? So automation is something you can describe something which is you take any human doing or there is the process, and it is a predetermined decisions are being done. We know what exactly has to be done, what is the sub process and things like that, right? For instance, painting a car is going to be very common. It's going to remain the same for all the cars. That can be automated. Doing a lot of other things, right? It can be DevOps is predominantly an automated process on that, right? Artificial intelligence is the ability of a computer or a computer controlled robot to perform tasks that are commonly associated with intellectual processes, characteristics of a human, right? So here it is talking about some kind of a decision making. Is that is what makes a human, right? So how is that we make better decision because of our intelligence, and we are, while making the decision, we are considering a lot of parameters, right? I give simple example, right? Again, in intelligence, what is the difference, right? Even a chimpanzee has some kind of an intelligence, and the Einstein is also an intelligence, supreme intelligence. There are two different scenarios, right? AI also means that chimpanzee intelligence is also an AI intelligence, right? You don't see nowadays what we are seeing AI intelligence are very task specific. We don't see a generalized AI interface. It will take a long time. Even the in my consideration, right? In my consideration, you might see there's a lot of AI generating images and things like that. Those are not a pure sense. We are going towards that. I'm not telling that. It is going to take some time, not as soon as what people think is what I believe in. It is very, certain amount of decision is being made by that. Any kind of in a painting, image creation AIs, there were automation tools already there, which could do all those things. It was just that an intelligence is added to that, right? The problem with AI is that people think automation is also AI. Right? That's the thing. That's the problem, because unless until you very specifically train an artificial intelligence system, it becomes very difficult for it to get better. And the main reason Chat GPT is so good is that so many people use it. Right? Every time people use, they learn. And in fact, the Google search was that is what it was doing all these years. Right? The reason why Google search is so good compared to others is that a lot of people use Google search. Right? That's the main reason for that to be good out there. Um, let's try to understand the difference between automation and AI. So let's consider from a washing machine perspective, right? So washing machine is an excellent example for your automation tool. So every day you're going to use your hand to wash, and before and all is doing the same process. What every human would have been doing is doing the same thing out there. But here a lot of decision making depends on the human being. Right? When I'm putting the clothes inside the washing machine, I have to decide on the program selection, what type of a wash I'm going to do, what is the duration I want, what cloth type I have to select out there, what is the spin cycle, what is the rinse cycle, what is the detergent amount I have to put out there. All those things, even the temperature and things like that, whatever the things that you put, those decisions are made in advance by a human being before pressing that start button, right? Yeah, the automation starts after that, and till it finishes, rest everything is going to be done. You don't have to interfere with that part till it finishes for that. That is automation, right? So what is an AI from the same perspective? And we are moving towards in this in washing machine. I think if you see advanced level or higher expensive washing machines, they're taking out this process of that. Here, all the decision machine is going to be made by the washing machine only. Based on the cloth what you put, it is going to scan your clothes. Then it's going to see what is the level of dirt in the. It has to do all those process, and then it is going to pre-select the program itself. You're not doing anything with that. Just only task for you is that putting your cloth inside the washing machine and taking the cloth out once the washing is done. Rest everything, what detergent has to be disposed and things and all, everything is going to be done by the AI itself for that. That is what is AI for me. Adding decision making to the automation process is what it is, right? The AI definition changes here very frequently, and people things like that. As I told, the intelligence varies and what can be done and what cannot be done. The main advantage of AI is that what makes a human being intelligent is its ability to fail and learn from it, right? That is what makes a human being special, makes him intelligent. The advantage of the AI when a computational model is that it can fail fast, it can fail more time, and it can understand a lot of things from it. And that is why it becomes better at playing video games, better at dealing with design and process because it is failing so many times, right? But it is learning each and every time. The model is improving on that. But this is artificial intelligence, right? So how it is going to be useful for me in pen testing, right? Um, what are the current security challenges? Pen testing is, as I told, one of the motivations for doing this talk and getting into, because I'm into cybersecurity training, is that getting more people to aware of how to do and what to be done out there. There's a lot of difficulties we face when we do a lot of things out there, especially in a DevSecOps role. A lot of people, there's not enough people out there for security as people want, right? There was a scenario, it was 1:1,000, right? For every 1,000 developers, there was only one pen tester out there. So it has been improving. So what are the security challenges? Because if AI is a solution, right? AI in offensive security or AI in pen testing is a solution. What are the problems it can solve, right? If you're taking a paracetamol, you need to have an headache first. Without that, you can't take a paracetamol. So because its solution is, headache is going to some other thing as in sometimes painkiller, pain, body ache and everything, you can take paracetamol. So main thing here is that problems we face in security is that what I also feel the same thing is expanding attack surface, right? The more and more we are seeing, previously there was only web application, then more came mobile application, then we are seeing APIs and things, meaning they're coming more and more avenues where an attacker can hack, right? Previously, he can only needs to hack via Nmap or anything only on the server, then web application. So he can hack from one more area and mobile. So more and more as we are seeing out there, it becomes more difficult. And especially with the current work from home scenario where people are given laptops and things, even if they're working in office laptop, it brings in a lot more problems to us, for security people out there. The threats are getting better. Second point, the the knowledge about security is spreading. And again, in an offensive or a malware creation and things, it is getting better and better, right? People are coming with a lot more sophisticated attacks and nowadays, and you'll be really surprised, right? Uh, how much the banks have to go through to prevent attacks from is there. And again, diversification of assessment, devices types that we have to scan, protect, hack. Again, from an hacker perspective, in our team, we have a specialist for each and everything. Someone is good with information gathering, someone is good with networking devices, firewall, routers, and devices, and someone with servers who's good with that and things like that. Because one person is very difficult, and it's now becoming more difficult to manage a pen testing team because every time the client comes with completely entirely diverse application. They are running Ubuntu servers, they're running Red Hat servers, they're running Windows servers, and they're having MacBooks. And how do you protect or how do you hack? Right, that is one thing. And dynamic environment, right? So previously you used to see, the environment where they're running the servers was stagnant. On premise, there was a single server. They used to run their applications in that. Nowadays, it is not same, right? There one server is running in Azure, other is running in GCP, and one more running in AWS, and also running on on-prem. And they are all connected in a different VPN configuration. It is changing constantly, right? They may have a particular server in AWS today. They might change it to, Azure a couple of months down, and they may bring it down and things like that. That's going to vary a lot. A balance between automation and manual testing, and this is very critical, right? I use a lot of automation tools, but I also stick with a lot of manual tools because there are lot of things. When it comes to infrastructure, automation is better. It finds out majority of it, majority of it. But when it comes to web application, mobile, automation has its own limitations, right? Especially doing authentication and authorization checks. It is very, very, very difficult out there doing scans. So we need to understand where sometimes if you use only nowadays we are seeing a lot of pen testing companies sticking only to automation scans and they tell that is your good. That happened for one of our clients. Before they were our clients, they were working with a company that did scans and did everything for them. Uh, we told them there's a lot of vulnerabilities, I think, so we'll give it a test. They told no, everything is fine, we don't need your help. So then my boss convinced them, tell that we'll scan, we'll do the pen testing from our end. No vulnerabilities, you don't have to pay. If vulnerabilities, then you have to pay. Right. So they were shocked after the test. We gave them a 70-page report. They had an immediate critical meeting understanding why are there so many, why is our things, why it's not been done on that. That is how it is there, right? Because they solely depend on automation scans. They do not depend on manual. So we have to have that, right? And on one more thing we see very difficult is tool development and customization. Right? Kali Linux is preferred because it comes with about 700 tools for doing all the activities. And trust me, certain times there are not tools enough to do what certain things we want. There are cases sometimes for certain attack vectors, we'll have to write our own scripts, right? That is a bit of an issue, right? That becomes not every pen tester is a developer. Not everyone can write code. If you can write code, it's good. But if you can't, it becomes there's a lot of, so you can still miss vulnerabilities because you're not able to write your own tools and things like that, right? The most difficult part of any pen testing, one particular activity which almost made me quit pen testing, right, is reporting. You find all the vulnerabilities and things, then you have to take that vulnerability and put it in a report in a way that is understood by the developers or this client, right? It's the most difficult task, right? You do it for a couple of days and then you have to sit and write a report. That is very difficult. So that is a problem in pen testing. And finally is data analysis and threat intelligence, right? When you're doing a lot of scanning, when you're doing a lot of, you get to see a lot of log files. Okay. On a normal web page, where company is using about, 100 people are using, we're seeing about 10,000 lines or 20,000 lines of logs per day. Okay. That is how much logs are there. And we have to analyze that logs for a month or 2 months or per quarter. So 90,000 into 90 into 20,000 lines of log files. And how you're going to analyze that? How do you know is there any attack pattern in that and things like that? So data analytics and threat intelligence comes into play. Right? We need a very good technique out there, and it needs something which is adaptive. So this is where your AI comes into play. Right? So AI usually will have something called as an AI agent. These are basically agents which will follow a cyclic approach. They keep on doing the same process and again. They learn from their past behavior and they improve the approach. Right. One of the major issues we face is planning for an attack, especially in a red teaming attack where we are actually simulating a real-time scenario. We need to have lot of experience understanding, not only from a technical point of view, from a human point of view also, right? In one of the red teaming, what we do is whenever we do a phishing mail, right? So people are a bit more clever nowadays. They don't click on every mail. So what we did is we did a Google Map search for that company, and we saw what are the nearby restaurants. We started sending coupons in the name of those restaurants, and a lot of people clicked. Right, that's how you can fool. So, but coming up with this kind of an approaches, it's going to be very difficult from a human. And AI agents can be used for that. It is again one more problem with pen testing is that the repetition of that activity. Right, you can pen test once in 3 months. It's a lot of work, a lot of activity. People are involved in it. And after the pen testing, also a lot of involvement is required from both developers because they find vulnerabilities, they have to fix it. They have to retest that whether vulnerability is fixed or not. And doing this repetition with a very small frequency of time is going to be difficult, meaning I can't do every week, or I can't do every time there's a change in the software, I can't do that process, right? So can I have an artificial intelligence into doing this? So this is what we are looking at. AI. AI is still picking up. Very few players in offensive security. ChatGPT is quite famous. There are a lot of other tools for resume building and things, and other scenarios. But for offensive security, we are seeing very little, right? So, but if we are seeing what is that they are supposed to, right? And again, it also comes into play is how much is the involvement of AI is going to be. All I have to give the domain name and it will do completely and give me a report, or should there be some human factor involvement out there, right? So basically, how would right now this what diagram you're seeing out here, this is something what is happening in the real-time scenario. A lot of research is going on this particular pattern. A lot of companies are coming up with this similar to that, but there's no I think Compass is some tool, Compass AI is Fire Compass is something like that is there. They are coming up with some tools for this. Very few companies are into play, but this is going to be very much important in the future. Trying to understand, getting yourself into cybersecurity and artificial intelligence in cybersecurity is going to be the next big thing, right? It might take some time, couple of years coming into play, but the first responders for that are going to be awarded generously in this, what I feel, because it takes down the threat level significantly, what it is going to be there. At the same time, it also brings down the number of people involved in the process as well, right? If like 10 people are there, it can bring it down to 2 or 3 people out there, right? So that is the main advantage, right? So see here, you can see in this that everything is done by the AI. The human is giving the artificial intelligence AI agent what is the domain, right? So a lot of activities like subdomain enumeration, version scanning of it, web server scanning and things, endpoint exploiting and reporting can be done out there. But once scanning is done, based on some initial scanning is done, it can decide based on the output, what are the basic scans was done. It can decide on which further port can need to be focused on, right? It might do, let's say, it will do a server scan and it will see that there's port number 443 is open out there and no other port is open out there. So then it will tell, okay, find the tool which is better, because out of 700 plus tools, there is a specific tool for, not 700 tools can be used for everything, right? There's specific tools for what particular activity. So we can think about is, Nikto is one of those tools that can be used for scanning web applications. Then you can go ahead with that, right? And before we could do the attack or start the attack, AI can either take its decision to do the attack, initiate the attack, or we can add a human interference into that, right? A human is going to approve the attack on behalf of the AI, and then it is going to do the attack. Once you do the attack, what is going to happen is that a certain set of results comes out. Probably it might give out something, some information which was not known before this particular phase, or which was not identified in reconnaissance phase and things like that. Now we got certain things that are present out there. We can replan for the same process, right? That is what we do, right? We take up a guy. You need to be an expert to do this process. Unless you're not an expert, you will not understand what data I've got, whether the data I've got is dust or gold dust. You don't understand from that perspective. So when AI gets this information, it is behaving, it is learning again and again. Probably there's a lot of tinkering or human involvement in the starting that will help it learn. And once it is done, then it will rerun the process. It is going to redo the planning. It is going to reason which tool is maybe better. Maybe for the second round, Nikto may not be an ideal one, or it might change where to attack. It might tell, okay, I don't want to attack this particular page, but one more domain is there in the server. Let me attack that. And then again, execution. The same process repeats again and again. And this is where the AI is going to be. It is going to be relentless. It is going to keep on doing the again and again and again until till we tell it to stop. It is going to do, and on every pass, it is going to learn something, right? And that's going to be there. And once this is done, it makes it out there. And DARPA is one of the organization in US which deals with defensive and learning, lot of equipments, which is going to be future equipments and things. They are working on a lot of AI models for cybersecurity on a defensive end, where it will automatically fix vulnerabilities when the vulnerabilities come up, right? So we see there's a lot of vulnerabilities we get from third party like Python and things and all. So that vulnerability is when it's identified, it goes back to the developer at the Python team. They look at it and they'll write a fix for that, right? So what if an AI can do that part itself? What it can write its own code, make modification, and do all those things. And that is where it is going to go, right? AI in cybersecurity has been there for a very long time, well before ChatGPT is there, but it's more difficult to get the process sorted out here, right? So it is requires much more into that part. Okay, so that's what the approach is going to be. But where are the things that is going to help us with? Different stages of an hacking are there. So different, let's say in reconnaissance phase, it will help us get better data collection, right? Better understanding of the data collected out there. So it requires a lot of experience to see, okay, this data relates to this data, right? In early stages, for the first time, someone would have thought about, okay, we can use career pages to see what is the underlying infrastructure out there. But someone had to think about it. And that was not something quite apparent in the books. But AI is something which can look at a lot of data. AI can also be used to collect, let's say I'll give you an apple.com or any Tesla. You're going to look about 20 web sites or 20 blogs are there, and you're going to analyze the data out there. Can you do 200 websites? Can you do 300 websites? Can you do 500 websites? It can't be done. So AI is something where that can be used out there, and it can also analyze the threat landscape. Different variations. It can look into that, right? And it is also helps you with the planning phase. Since it has more data able to analyze, it helps out with the planning. Traffic analysis or scanning is very, looking at the traffic, I think predominantly not only scanning perspective, from a defensive perspective, from a blue teaming perspective. If you're looking at Snort, someone spoke about Snort. Snort collects a lot of data, right? Snort has to be trained to detect an anomaly. Because firewall is not capable of identifying anomalies, right? It is going to tell whether the packet is allowed or not allowed based on some rules. That is why we need IDPS, where it will do that part. But setting up a rule set for anomaly detection takes in a lot of a person's ability to analyze the anomaly, right? Someone is doing to that, or identifying the pattern of the vulnerability, right? So if you want to identify a particular pattern, how do you generate script for that? So all those things can be, made better with AI, and there are tools coming up with for that, right? That is there. And again, in the vulnerability analysis, we also see risk impact evaluation, right? Vulnerability, false positive reduction, and root cause analysis of that. Lot of times the problem with scanners, the reason why scanners are so good and they will give out reporting, and you saw previously it had around 1,000 plus vulnerabilities in that. It will bring down to 700 or 800 something, sometimes, or even to 1,000 to 700, or sometimes even to 500. The main reason is that scanners are not intelligent. They can tell something as a vulnerability when that is not a vulnerability, right? So that's one of the reasons why we have to sit with customers after the scanning process to check. They'll tell no, that is not a vulnerability. That is how we have set up out there. There's a requirement for that. They will have a justification for that, and they would have got other security features to mitigate something wrongs will happen because of that. But your scanners will not know that. Then you have to manually have to take the decision out there for that part, right? That is there. And the exploitation, right? How do you hack or how do you gain access? That is something is a bit of a gray area. Now, I think people are talking about, you know, writing a malware is very difficult. Writing a virus is very difficult. What if we can use artificial intelligence for writing malware or viruses? It becomes much more easier for bad guys. Uh, Doing a lot of research on certain type of an attack vector is very difficult, right? It will take time, a lot of knowledge, because let's say there is one particular attack that is going to work on PHP, but you want a similar attack to happen on a Python. There is a lot of research that has to be done by your end to understand that part, right? So how do we do that? Then again, post exploit guidance. How do you recommend remediations and things like that? That has to be there. So there, AI is good. How to have the recommendations. But for me, I think that is there. Yeah, Menon.
So, uh, Pritam Maiti, he asks, sir, can you demonstrate how to a tool recognize a vulnerability?
In
Uh, can you please demonstrate how a tool
can recognize the
recognizes a
vulnerability.
vulnerability?
Yeah. So probably I'll try. Let me finish the reporting part. I think probably that's the end of our slides. Then probably I'll see a simple example of it. Right. So one of the thing it will help us predominantly with AI is report generation with the graphs creation and things like that. Building a knowledge base, all those things it will help out with. So we are still in the early stages of AI. It is still a lot of tools are going to come. I think probably in the next couple of years, this space is going to be quite lit, is what I feel. And having a little bit of knowledge of it and going to know how to use it in the future can be very, very useful. Right. So let me see how can I.
Eh, while you are setting up the lab,
Yeah.
guys, please, you guys need to understand our internship program have limited hours, like in every weekend only 2 hours. So we have a little less availabilities by which we can showcase the hands-on.
Yes.
Our DevOps internship is 8 weeks, so we have a little more flexibility by which we can showcase more and hands-on. But our main training or our job ready training is designed that 85% is hands-on, because right now in the job market, the interviewer is not going to ask what is what. They are going to ask from your real-time environment experience things. So most probably they are going to ask how you have resolved, how you have integrated, how you have set up the thing. So that's the reason all of our job ready training are hands-on, and that's our job ready trainings are in more or less 2 hours every day, Monday to Friday, 5 days in a week for 7 weeks. So we have lots of things to cover, and we have lots of availability and flexibility to bring this thing on the uh, table, right?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
It's quite hands-on. Actually, it takes out a lot of your time. It helps you out with it is it's not we cover a lot of things when we're doing in the actual main course. We are covering DevSecOps. We're covering pen testing. We're covering about how do you configure your SSH and how do you configure your firewall in a proper way. All those things are going to be covered on that. So
Now
that is good.
one one more thing, plenty students, if you guys join and you are very new in the domain or even in
Yes.
the IT field, don't worry, because we witness n number of students success who join our main courses without any prior IT knowledge, and then they successfully landed in big services company like Microsoft, Apple, or Amazon as a DevOps engineer, cybersecurity expert, SOC analyst. The biggest company which looking for this particular mm, job role, the cybersecurity experts, that is like called Big Four, like Deloitte, KPMG, Ernst and Young, and PwC, because they are in the main players in this domain, because they are doing the SOC and this security and audits and software audits. So they need more and more people. And but the fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, they are in the market really really the good engineers with good hands-on experience in cybersecurity domain is really lagging.
Yeah, because I remember one of the states where we were running that company, we had literally exhausted about 80% of the candidates for a 2% role, right? That is how dreadful situation is when it comes to quality cybersecurity personnel out there. Um, it's quite difficult. There are guys in US who are getting without any education, graduation or done anything, undergrads or anything, getting more than $150,000 just for a freshers role if they're good with their knowledge that is required for this. Yeah. So let's just let me explain here. So what I'm doing, this is I'm using an Nmap tool called Nmap. So this is predominantly what all your scanners will going to do, your Nessus scanners and all those things. What it is going to do is that it is going to start looking out for the ports that are already there in the first phase, right? If you see here, I've given out, it checked out, it saw this particular server, right? So I'm having this something called as a BWAP. This is a vulnerable application. It is not a live or anything. We don't do on anything live. We do it on the practice. It is illegal to do on live servers without proper written permissions from them, right? It is not right to go out with that. So we see what are the ports that are open out there, right? This is one thing and one way of going it. And further next, I went on, you see here, I stopped the scan because it was taking too much. So, but I knew port 80 was used here. Why? Port 80 is open out here and it is telling it is using HTTP, that is a web server. So I fine tuned my port number 80 scan and I told I want to know a much more detail about it, right? So in this scan, what it gave us, it told the port is open and it is running an HTTP service and it was running an Apache HTTP and version number 2.2.8. Along with that, it is able to tell me it is running an Ubuntu operating system and also it is telling me it is running a Python 5.2.4, right? This is where this information comes into play. If you take this information, right, and put it in Google somewhere, right? This will give out information related to that. Right, you get a lot of CV details and see here. Explore DB gives out the information related to that, and there's an sorry about I think it's my virtual machine is running slow, but I can get this is how predominantly a scanning part comes into play, right? So that is how it will go. But this is not, this is a very basic scan, what a lot of people will do. It is the web application and mobile where it comes into the more things are much more. The Nessus scanners are much more good at identifying this kind of a report. Yeah, it is not required from pen testers. Any more questions, guys?
We are at the end of the session, so
Yes.
because we are going to start our DevOps session with the same link. So guys, if you have any question, please feel free to ask.
Sir, if we take job ready training, how many months it will take to get a job?
So what is your location? You're based out of US, India?
India.
See, I can give you the exact like months if you are based in US, because our consultancy based in US. So we know very every nooks and hooks about the US job market.
Chandrika,
The
what is
train
your current profile? What is you have done?
I have completed my graduation last year
Okay.
and still searching for job.
Okay. Fine,
And
fine.
I have learned bug bounty.
Okay. So have you found any bugs?
Uh, Last week only the course was completed. I'm
Okay.
still doing one of the internship
Mhm.
on web development. That's all.
Okay. Okay, good. I think it depends. I think Menon will be able to perform, tell you correctly. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, sorry to cut you.
No, that's fine. So now our course duration is 6 weeks to 7 weeks. Like, okay. Now, because why 6 or 7? Because most, though our hands-on training students number is fixed, because we can, as it is a hands-on, we cannot take, we have a upper limit or threshold limit, because we want the class should be limited to, to focus on every individual student's progress. Now, and to maintain that quality, sometime we need to extend a one week or sometimes 1.5 weeks. So that's the reason it's 6 or 7 weeks. So by 6 or 7 weeks, you will be ready to join as a in the job market as a pen tester or DevSecOps engineer. Okay. Now you now I'm giving out the comparison. US job market is literally slow, very slow. Indian job market is still in a good shape. But still, in US job market, as we do have a consultancy in US, we successfully landed some more like good number of our DevOps and cybersecurity students in last couple of months. I think those students are here in this call. Many students and people are from US location. They can assure us that or they can confirm that US job market is going through a recession. Even this month, the the stock market was little bit literally down because the job report came out and it is slowing down. But still, because this particular two domain, actually three domain, AI, cybersecurity, and DevOps has lots and lots of potential, and the company is still looking for really good candidates, and we are providing a hands-on training. So at the end of the day or end of the training, if they are freshly graduated from the college or not at all having any IT background, but still after the training they can have or showcase at least 1 or 2 years of real-time equivalent experience, because we are not only going to give them the lab. We are in this course we give them some project where they can work in real hand, not live project, but that we call them as a capstone project. So naturally by 6 or 7 weeks you will be ready for your job.
What is the price?
You can
What are the
check our price in our website, but that the next batch will be our evening batch, evening US time. It is from 7:30 AM Central PM Central Time CST to 9:30 PM CST, and like we can have 6 batches in a whole year, evening batch, and 3 morning batch in a whole year. And in every batch we can have a limited number of students. So because to maintain the integrity. Chandrika, you are trying to say something, but we cannot hear. And if you are very new in the IT background and you want to go to DevSecOps position, the best advice what we can give, that first try to take our DevOps course, because that will give you a very high deep level of understanding about Linux, cloud, and six DevOps tool set, including container, Docker container, and Kubernetes. Then go for cyber security training, and it will give you the idea how to secure your DevOps environment, your cloud environment, and finding the vulnerabilities and so on. So if you have time and you want to make that thing in the right way, so first go for DevOps classes, then go for cybersecurity classes. But if you are in hurry, then you can go to the directly cybersecurity classes. but that time you need to take more load by yourself. And good thing is that this Friday, our DevOps class morning batch, that is US morning, Indian evening batch was started. So, and the next evening batch for DevOps is going to start, I think, October third week, and our cybersecurity evening batch is going to start October's first week. Am I correct, Mr. Karthik?
Yes.
So, guys, please feel free to ask any question, because we do have another two session next 2 weekend, so we can utilize those things. So, how Hina asks, how is attendance counted? So, Microsoft team is connected with Microsoft Azure, and yeah, after this call is ended, it will give us a attendance sheet. If you go to the chat, you can see the previous. I think you cannot see, but as the admin, we can see that what is the which people they join from this call with which email ID. So by which we take the attendance.